Sometimes I realize I've been sitting in this body for years, without ever really being inside it. I breathe, I move, I react, I get tired, I get restless. But most of the time, the body feels like background noise, like a vehicle I forgot I'm riding in. And occasionally, very rarely, something interrupts that habit. A stretch that feels too honest. A breath that goes too deep. A moment where the body doesn't feel mechanical anymore. It feels aware, not thinking, just present. And when that happens, there's a quiet question that arises on its own. What if the body isn't something we have, but something we're meant to use? Most of us treat the body like a problem to be managed, fed, cleaned, exercised, decorated, or sometimes punished. We call it healthy when it doesn't interrupt our plans, and sick when it does. But rarely do we ask what the body is actually doing here. Not symbolically, not medically, but functionally, in this strange experience of being conscious. Because if awareness is already present silent, watching, then why does it need flesh at all? Why muscle, bone, heat, breath? Why effort? Hatha yoga doesn't begin by answering that. It begins by slowing the question down until it can be felt. The text doesn't treat the body as sacred in a poetic way or inferior in a renunciate way. It treats it more like an instrument, neutral, precise, powerful if tuned, dangerous if neglected. Almost like saying, this is not you, but without this, you won't go very far. And that framing alone quietly rearranges something inside. Because suddenly, the body isn't the obstacle to awareness. It's the interface. Think about how much of your inner life is shaped by posture you never chose. Breath patterns inherited from stress. Tensions you forgot the origin of. The mind reacts, overthinks, loops, but the body is the one holding the memory. The body remembers before the mind explains. And Hatha seems to notice this without drama. It doesn't rush upward into transcendence. It goes downward first, into feet, into spine, into digestion, into the rhythm of inhale and exhale, as if saying, before you try to escape the world, learn how you're standing in it. There's something almost unsettling about how practical it is. No mythology at first, no metaphysical declarations, just alignment, pressure, heat, stillness, control, not the kind that dominates, but the kind that listens. When you hold a posture long enough, the body begins to speak in sensations instead of language, and the mind, for once, has to follow. Thoughts slow not because you forced them to, but because they lost their leverage. The body became too present to ignore. And that's when a strange reversal happens. Instead of awareness being trapped in the body starts to feel held by awareness. Movements become quieter. Breathing becomes deliberate without effort. Even discomfort feels informational rather than hostile. As if the body is saying, I've been waiting for you to arrive. And you begin to sense why this path never separated the physical from the subtle. Why muscle and mind were never two different projects. Because the body isn't dense by accident. It's dense so attention can land. So awareness can anchor itself somewhere specific. Without that anchoring, everything stays abstract, philosophical, unlived. But when awareness enters the body fully, something very subtle changes. You don't just know you're alive. You feel the mechanics of being alive. Heat rising, energy settling, stillness becoming tangible. And the mind, so proud of its complexity, quietly realizes it was never the primary instrument. Hatha yoga almost feels like a calibration phase. Not the destination, not the climax, just the tuning. As if consciousness itself needed a stable base before it could unfold further. Because without purification, without sensitivity, any higher insight leaks. It doesn't stay. It becomes memory instead of transformation. And maybe that's why this system insists on discipline without aggression, precision without obsession, effort without violence. There's also a humility in this approach that often gets missed. The body isn't conquered. It's cooperated with. You don't overpower it. You listen until it trusts you. And once that trust forms, something remarkable happens. Awareness stops floating. It settles. It inhabits. It stays. And the question slowly shifts from what am I trying to reach to what is already here once interference drops. At some point, you realize the body has been quietly preparing the ground for something deeper. Not liberation yet, not transcendence, just readiness, clean channels, clear signals, fewer distortions, as if the instrument is finally capable of holding a finer frequency. And when that realization arrives, it doesn't feel dramatic. It feels obvious, almost embarrassing. Like, of course, the body had to be prepared. Of course, awareness needed a stable container. Where else would it express itself? And just when you think this is where it ends, when the body feels aligned, responsive, awake, you start noticing something else. That even now, things remain cloudy, subtle impurities, residual noise, patterns that aren't muscular, but energetic, habits that don't live in joints, but in flow. And the body, now sensitive enough, begins to reveal them, not as pain, as resistance, as blockage, as unevenness, which leads naturally, almost inevitably, into the next question. If the body is the tool, then what must be removed for the tool to function flawlessly? What needs cleansing, not morally, not symbolically, but experientially? What happens when purification becomes conscious, systematic, and internal? And that's where the journey quietly turns next into purification and control, not as suppression, not as force, but as refinement. That exploration continues in the next movement of this journey, through the lens of the Gheraṇḍa Saṁhitā, and will enter it the same way, slowly, from the inside.